The late afternoon sun streamed through the worn curtains, casting golden stripes across the modest living room. Chioma's daughter sat cross-legged on the tiled floor, tracing invisible patterns with her tiny fingers, her brow furrowed in thought. The house smelled faintly of jollof rice cooling on the stove and laundry soap from clothes Chioma had folded earlier. Outside, Lagos hummed with its usual chaos cars honking, street hawkers calling, children laughing and running through the dusty streets. But inside, a small voice held the power to shake the walls. "Mama," the little girl began, her voice soft, careful, yet urgent. Why do I not have a full name like my friends?" Chioma froze, her hand hovering over a stack of folded clothes. Her heart tightened, chest constricting with a pain she thought she had buried long ago. She had faced hunger. She had faced loneliness. She had faced whispered judgment from neighbors, friends, and strangers. But no amount of preparation could shield her from this, her child, innocent and pure, asking the question every parent fears. Why am I incomplete? She knelt, gathering the little girl in her arms, holding her tightly. Chioma hesitated, swallowing the lump in her throat. "You did nothing wrong before you were born. Never forget that. A name does not make you less. You're enough, always." Her daughter's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "But why do people say things? Why do teachers look at me funny?" Chioma closed her eyes briefly, memories rushing back. The day she had told Tay about the pregnancy, the sharp edge in his eyes, the coldness in his voice. "I can't accept this. I'm not ready to give a child my name." The way he turned and walked away, leaving her to face not just the pregnancy but the world's judgment alone. Weeks later, she had heard he had left for the UK, pursuing his own future while abandoning theirs. And now, years later, the echo of his rejection had returned as a question too heavy for a child's shoulders. Chioma pressed her forehead against hers. "Listen carefully," she whispered. "You are strong. Your name may not be complete in their eyes, but your spirit carries more power than any name ever could. Remember the stories I told you, the tortoise who outsmarted the lion, the river that carves its path through stone. That is you, always. Unstoppable, clever, and wise." Her daughter blinked, trying to grasp the weight of her mother's words. Chioma could feel the pulse of life in that small chest, resilient, unbroken, and growing stronger every day. Somewhere, far away, Tay lived unaware that the child he had refused was learning to survive with dignity and courage. Chioma let go. Brushing back tears she refused to show. She whispered a vow into the quiet room. "You may not have a name from him, but you will never be nameless in spirit, heart, or strength." The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the floor. In that modest Lagos home, a mother and child held each other close, building a bond stronger than rejection, deeper than gossip, and unshakable in a world that sought to define them by absence. The next morning, the sun glared over Lagos, baking the dusty streets as Chioma held her daughter's small hand and guided her through the crowded pathways to school. The city thrummed with life hawkers, shouted prices, cars honked impatiently, and street children weaved through the throngs, but Chioma's mind was elsewhere, focused on the fragile heart she was carrying alongside her child's. As they entered the classroom, Chioma felt her stomach tighten. The teacher began roll call, calling out names in order one by one. When her daughter's turn came, she stepped forward confidently, shoulders squared, but then hesitated when reaching the part that mattered most, the surname. Her lips trembled as she whispered the final word. A ripple of murmurs passed through the room. Some students exchanged awkward glances. Others giggled quietly, unsure if it was polite to laugh or wrong to do so. Chioma stood just outside the doorway, her eyes fixed on her daughter, silently praying for courage and resilience. Her daughter's small voice, firm yet uncertain, finished the introduction. The giggles subsided, but Chioma could feel the weight of judgment still pressing through the walls. She recalled her grandmother's words, "The tortoise does not rush to boast. It waits for the right moment to strike." Chioma knew it was not her daughter's fault that she carried the burden of a name never given. This moment was not about weakness, it was about teaching endurance, dignity, and patience. Later, during recess, a group of children approached her daughter. "Why doesn't your name have a father's part?" One asked bluntly, a mixture of curiosity and mischief in his eyes. Others whispered and giggled behind their hands. The child's lips quivered, but she didn't cry. Chioma stepped closer and knelt, taking her daughter's hands in hers. Listen to me, she whispered. You are whole. Your name may seem incomplete on paper, but your spirit, your mind, and your heart, those are complete. No one can take that from you. You are strong. You are clever. You are unstoppable. Her daughter nodded, eyes brightening slightly, though the sting of social judgment remained. Chioma held her a little longer, letting the warmth of her embrace fortify the child's courage. Chioma's mind wandered back to the moment Tay rejected her. The words he had spoken had carved a wound deeper than any laugh from schoolmates could. I can't accept this. I'm not ready to give a child my name. That rejection had followed her through lonely nights, through whispered gossip, and now, through the same question from the very child she was raising. Chioma clenched her fists. She would not allow society, circumstance, or the absence of a father to define her daughter's worth. She would be the river that carved a path through stone, the tortoise that outwitted the lion, the mother who built strength in the smallest heart. When school ended, Chioma walked her daughter home, hand in hand. She repeated silently the vow she had whispered the day before. They may judge us. They may question us. But they will never define who we are. Not now. Not ever. And as Lagos roared around them, the mother and daughter moved forward, carrying dignity, courage, and a bond that no absence of a name could ever sever. Chioma and her daughter returned home, the heat of Lagos pressing down on them like an invisible weight. As they stepped into the compound, the whispers began soft at first, almost polite, but heavy with judgment. Women hanging laundry glanced over, offering smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Men nodded curtly, then shook their heads in disapproval. There goes the woman raising a child without a name, one neighbor muttered under her breath. Another added, she's strong, yes, but strength doesn't replace a father's name. Chioma's daughter clutched her hand a little tighter, sensing the tension but too young to understand its full weight. Chioma's heart ached, but she forced a calm smile. She knew the whispers were not the truth. They were the projections of fear and tradition, a world that could not comprehend the courage required to survive abandonment. Inside the house, Chioma set her daughter's school bag down and offered her a small smile. Don't mind them, she said gently. Their words are loud, but they do not define you. You are full, complete, and powerful, even if some cannot see it yet. Her daughter's eyes searched hers, trust and uncertainty blending in a way only children's eyes could hold. Mama, why does everyone care so much about names? Chioma thought of Tay, his rejection, the cold way he had walked away. She thought of the sleepless nights she had endured, the harsh stares at the market, the judgment that followed her like a shadow. Because some people value appearances more than hearts, she said finally. But remember what I told you? The river flows around stones. The wind bends the grass without breaking it. You, my child, will flow and bend, but you will not break. Later that evening, while preparing dinner, Chioma overheard more murmurs from neighbors outside. She could hear their hushed speculations about her child's future, their worries about the child growing up without a father's name. She paused, wiping her hands on her apron, and let the words wash over her like distant rain. She would not respond. She would not defend. Instead, she would let action, love, and wisdom speak louder than gossip. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. The hen scratches the ground quietly, but her chicks eat. Do not announce your strength. Let it feed those who depend on it. Chioma repeated the proverb in her head, feeling the weight of it settle like armor. She looked at her daughter playing with a small clay figure and realized that she had been preparing for this moment her entire life. The moment when a child would face the world's judgment and need her guidance to stand strong. That night, as her daughter slept, Chioma sat by the window listening to the city below. She whispered a prayer into the warm Lagos air. Let them speak. Let them judge. But let my child know her worth is unshakable. Let the world learn that strength is built quietly, and dignity is never borrowed from others. Somewhere far away, Tay's name floated silently in her thoughts, a ghost of rejection, a reminder of the past. But here, in her home, Chioma and her daughter were building a life where love, courage, and resilience would be their names. And the whispers of the world. They would not win. The day of the school's cultural celebration arrived, and Chioma walked her daughter to the school compound, her heart tight with anticipation. Children dressed in colorful traditional attire ran excitedly. Teachers shouted instructions, and parents gathered to watch. Lagos itself seemed to hum in excitement, the city's rhythm echoing the nervous energy of the schoolyard. Chioma adjusted her daughter's uniform, smoothing down the creases in her little dress. "Remember what we talked about," she whispered. "You are strong. You are complete. Their words cannot define you." Her daughter nodded, her small hands clutching Chioma's tightly. The reassurance, though quiet, was enough to steady both of them for the moment. As the children were called to the stage to introduce themselves, Chioma's daughter stood tall at first. She smiled brightly, and the audience murmured politely. But then, when asked to state her full name, the hesitation returned. She whispered the surname she had, the incomplete name hanging in the air like a question the world refused to answer. A few students giggled, not maliciously, but carelessly, like stones rolling down a hill. Some teachers cleared their throats uncomfortably, and a hush fell across a corner of the hall. Chioma felt her stomach twist. Every whispered laugh felt like an echo of Tay's rejection, every sideways glance like the judgment of society she had been carrying for years. She clenched her fists at her sides, reminding herself of her grandmother's wisdom. The tortoise does not race to boast. It moves carefully and wins without shouting. Chioma forced herself to breathe and let her daughter finish. Head held high, voice trembling but steady. The girl's courage, small but fierce, sent a wave of pride through her mother's chest. Afterward, during the parent-teacher interaction, Chioma overheard other mothers whispering, "She's raising a child without a father's name. I wonder how she manages alone." Another added, "Strength is admirable, but that child will face more judgment than most." Chioma bit her tongue. She wanted to respond, to tell them that dignity is forged in the fire of hardship, that a child's worth is not measured by the presence or absence of a father. But she remembered another folktale her grandmother had told her, the story of the clever child, who faced ridicule and turned it into power, not anger. At home later that evening, her daughter played quietly on the floor, mimicking the school stage with her dolls. Chioma knelt beside her, brushing strands of hair from her face. "I know it was hard today," she said softly. "But you showed bravery. You stood tall. And one day, people will see that names do not define you, they only describe you." Her daughter looked up, eyes wide, still processing the weight of the day. "Mama, will they ever stop laughing?" she asked softly. Chioma hugged her tightly, holding her close. "Some may never understand," she said. "But we do. And that is enough. You are more than what they see. You are the river that finds its way, the tortoise that never loses to haste, the child that carries strength unseen by others." As night fell over Lagos, the city's lights flickered like stars caught between heaven and earth. Chioma stood by the window, watching the world beyond her home, whispering a vow she had repeated countless times. No laughter, no whispers, no judgment will ever take her spirit from her. She will rise, and I will make sure she knows her power. The house was quiet now, the hum of Lagos outside softened by distance and nightfall. Chioma sat on the worn wooden chair beside her daughter's bed, watching the small chest rise and fall in rhythm with each gentle breath. The events of the day whispers at school, the careless laughter, the judgment from neighbors pressed against her chest, but she refused to let them show. Her daughter stirred slightly, murmuring in sleep, and Chioma reached over to brush a stray lock of hair from her forehead. "Mama," the little voice had asked earlier, "will they ever stop judging me?" The question echoed in Chioma's mind, louder than any sound in the bustling city outside. She thought of Tay, the man who had walked away from responsibility, whose absence had left a void they could never fill. "I can't accept this. I'm not ready to give a child my name," he had said, his words carving wounds she had carried for years. And yet here she was standing, surviving, and nurturing a child with courage forged in silence. Chioma took a deep breath, letting the wisdom of her ancestors wash over her. She recalled the folktales her grandmother had shared, the clever child who endured mockery, The tortoise who outwitted the boastful lion, the river that flowed steadily despite stones and obstacles. Each story reminded her that patience, strategy, and unwavering love were the truest forms of power. She leaned closer, whispering into the night, a vow to both herself and her daughter. If the world refuses to give you a name, I will raise you with one that cannot be erased. I will teach you strength, courage, and wisdom. I will show you how to stand tall, even when the world doubts you. No absence, no judgment, no rejection will ever make you small. Her daughter shifted slightly, and Chioma smiled softly. Even in sleep, the child's resilience shone like a tiny flame. She was a living testament to survival, a spirit unbroken, a heart that could withstand both abandonment and ridicule. Outside, the streets of Lagos thrummed with lifehawkers. Cars, street children, but inside this small home, a quiet revolution took place. Chioma was determined that her daughter would not merely survive, she would thrive. And when the day came that society or even Tay tried to measure her by absence, by gossip, by judgment, she would have built a fortress of love, strength, and dignity around her. Chioma whispered another proverb she had learned long ago. The child who grows under the shade of patience will one day reach the sky. Her eyes lingered on her daughter, memorizing the curve of her lips, the sparkle in her eyes, the tiny hands that had endured more than most could understand. Somewhere in the distance, the shadow of Tay's life in the UK loomed, a reminder that the past was never truly gone. But for tonight, Chioma allowed herself a moment of quiet triumph. She kissed her daughter's forehead, holding her close, and promised silently, I will raise you without fear. I will raise you without shame. And one day, the world will know your worth, with or without a name. As she stepped back and closed the door, the city's lights flickered across the walls. In the modest Lagos home, love, resilience, and the enduring spirit of a mother and child burned brighter than judgment, louder than whispers and stronger than absence, and somewhere far away, a life once abandoned waited unknowingly for a day he would have to face the consequences of leaving. Night had fallen over Lagos, the city lights flickering like a million tiny stars suspended over the dusty streets. Chioma sat by her daughter's bed, the little one tucked in under a worn but clean blanket. The day's events, the laughter at school, the whispers of neighbors, the small but piercing questions about names and worth echoed in her mind like drums, signaling both danger and awakening. Her daughter stirred, mumbling something about being different, a worry Chioma had learned to expect but never get used to. She leaned down, brushing a strand of hair from the child's forehead. You are not different in the wrong way, she whispered. You are strong. You are clever. And you are brave even if the world does not yet see it. Chioma sat back, taking a deep breath. The room smelled faintly of oil lamps and warm jollof rice from earlier, comforting yet grounding. Her gaze drifted to the window, where the city pulsed with life, unaware of the battles waged quietly in homes like hers. She thought of Tay, far away in the UK, living a life that had once threatened to undo her entirely. His absence had been a shield and a curse. He had abandoned them, yet his rejection had forced Chioma to discover the steel in her own spirit. But even as she felt pride in the daughter she was raising, a shiver of unease crawled along her spine. Somewhere in the shadows of Lagos and the distant streets of the UK, a chapter of her past was quietly plotting its return. She could feel it, the way the wind shifted outside, the subtle weight of anticipation pressing against her heart. Tay's life, once a closed door, had not remained silent forever. Her grandmother's voice drifted into her memory. The river does not rush, yet it reaches the ocean. Every wave has its turn to crash. Chioma pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the rhythm of her heartbeat like a drum of warning and resilience combined. She would not falter. She had survived whispers, gossip, and public shame. She had nurtured life in a world that tried to erase it. Whatever came next, be it Tay, societal judgment, or some cruel twist of fate, she was ready. As she stood to leave the room, Chioma's daughter stirred again, whispering in her sleep, Mama, will you come back? Chioma paused at the doorway, a chill running through her. She did not answer. Not yet. The truth was complicated, and the heart of the past was unpredictable. She could only hope that when the day came, her child would be armed with the lessons she had painstakingly taught: courage, Patience and the wisdom that strength is forged in silence and action, not in fear. Chioma turned off the lamp, leaving only the faint glow of streetlights to filter through the curtains. She whispered to herself, a vow and a warning intertwined. They may return. Shadows may rise, but we are unbroken, and we will stand no matter what. The city outside pulsed with life, but inside the small Lagos home, a mother and her child rested quietly. The fire of their bond burning brighter than fear, absence, or the returning ghost of a life behind. And somewhere across the ocean, a life that had abandoned them waited unknowingly, unaware that a reckoning was quietly forming, a storm that would one day force them all to confront the truths they had tried to ignore.